Welcome to Pay Attention, a podcast guiding you from the chaos of the mind to the clarity of the heart. Here's your host, Holly McNEILL.
Hello and welcome here on April 1st, April Fool's Day. But hopefully a lot of you out there aren't any fools for listening to this podcast. And one of the things I'm really excited about is when I meet people along the way who really make a difference and agree to join me here on Pay Attention, just out in the world. For example, some of the people in the past, Robbie Kale, the poet, and Adam Kobler, who was my Uber driver in St. Paul. And actually, in 2 weeks, I'll have another person who is pretty instrumental in my journey. And today, I'm super excited to have with me in the studio Maria Gonzalez. Maria, thanks for coming today. Thanks.
Hey,
Oh,
hey, Holly.
hi. Hold on, let me get you on the screen. There we go. Thanks for coming today. Yes. I'm really excited. We met in the studio in February, so and she agreed to come on this live version today. So I'm excited to really show your work and what you and your husband are trying to do, really helping veterans out in the world. So we will be here in the background while the recording is playing. If you have any comments or questions, and you'll hear all about Maria, her work, Dia de los Muertos, which is kind of the only thing I can say in Spanish, and what she's been up to. We will be in the background and able to answer questions, and we will come back at the end just to update you on how things are going and so forth. So for now, sit back and enjoy the recording. I can get to the recording.
Thanks for watching Pay Attention.
Hello and welcome to the studio. Today, like I said, hopefully in the intro, we are going to go back and really, we've been talking a lot this season about the mind-body connection, about self-care, about awareness, and today we're going to go into some real-world experience. So I would like to invite to the stage, if you will, Maria Gonzalez. Maria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Holly, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I know we met at the Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead festival, and that was in October?
Yeah, you're correct.
Sure. Yeah, so it's been a while. This is now February, but I went there with my sister in San Antonio, and part of that you can explain is having these memorials. So what it's more, it was more, a lot more. I mean, it was called Day of the Dead, and forgive me, I didn't realize it was more about memorializing those of the past. So can you give us a little bit of idea what it's about, the Dia de los Muertos and
Sure. Yeah, of course. So San Antonio is rich in cultural history. We use the weekend right before November 1st, whatever that falls on, the last weekend in October, to celebrate those families or lives that have been lost. And we build altars. The festival invites out community members to build altars to remember and honor those who have been lost. And so the San Antonio Festival is, I think, the largest in the nation. It spans the course of 3 days from Friday to Sunday, and it usually draws crowds of about 100,000 people. So there's about 80 or so altars, and they're not just for individual family members, as you might think, but really anybody in the community, just across the board who has been lost, not even just recently, but anyone.
Yeah, I was really taken by that. I mean, I didn't really know. I was going for the costumes and all that you see, but I didn't really know what I was going to see there. And there were, past artists that we've lost, people. There was one that had, the wings that never made it, people trying to get to America and everything going on there. And yours especially really touched me. And your altar was about those that have served our country and later have come back and suffered and took their own lives. Can you give us a little bit of insight there?
Sure, yeah, of course. So, my husband and I, this was our third year building the altar at the festival.
Mhm.
And my husband is a disabled veteran,
Mhm.
Air Force veteran, and we wanted to raise awareness about the epidemic that we experience in this country, which is veteran suicide.
Okay.
And, a lot of people are not aware how prevalent it is, but, conservative numbers show 22 at least veterans take their lives every day. And
Oh, ugh.
San Antonio is rich in the veteran population. In fact, we call ourselves Military City USA. And so we thought we would use the city and the platform and the opportunity at Day of the Dead to really, again, raise that awareness and honor and pay tribute to those service members and veterans who have lost their battle since they, exited the military.
Yeah, well, thank you for using this platform to even talk about it more. Yeah, it was really 22 per day is it's amazing, and yeah, we don't realize the I can't imagine the mental anguish effects, PTSD that those veterans have gone through. So you have direct experience with that, right, with your husband, and that's what brought you all to this, correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. About 3 years ago, my husband did attempt to take his own life, and it was truly an eye opening experience for me to recognize that, sometimes there are battles going on in these veterans that, we're not fully aware of. We reference these as invisible wounds, and that mental health really can take a lot of different forms. And we were really fortunate that that he had that outcry and that we had the resources available to seek treatment for him. But it was in an unconventional form, and that was the second part of our showcase and the altar was really to raise awareness about these alternative treatment modalities that are available. They're not, like I said, they're not commonplace, and they are unconventional. But in our experience, they saved his life.
Wow. And the altar itself had all of the dog tags, right?
Correct.
And
Yep.
just so many, and some of the stories. And previously, I had someone on here talking about psychedelics and the treatments and how that can help. And she did mention, I believe, PTSD,
Yep.
and that's kind of the treatment that you're talking about,
Yep.
correct? Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. There are treatment resistant forms of PTSD and other mental
Okay.
health issues such as depression and anxiety that a lot of these veterans are suffering with. And unfortunately, they don't get the support that they need from their treatment facilities. And that was exactly the case for my husband. And so when he did share his struggles with me,
Mhm.
we found an organization. It was a veteran and military serving organization that takes veterans and first responders and actually administers psychedelics to them. But I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and in many, many states in the United States, psychedelics are not legal yet.
Mhm.
It's gaining momentum. There are some clinical trials underway, so we're excited for that, but it's just not there yet. And for those veterans who are currently suffering, help can't come soon enough.
Right.
So again, we were very fortunate to have stumbled across this organization. He did seek treatment. He went on a retreat in Mexico. He was administered psychedelics, and I can tell you that again, I can't underemphasize how transformative those treatments were for him and his healing. And we're nearly 3 years since that. And I'm not trying to suggest at all that it is a magic pill by any means. There's a lot of work that goes into the treatment, but nothing we had tried before had even, touched on any kind of the healing that he experienced from those medicines.
Well, trying to, when I had Myra Holtzman on, and she's in Denver, which is more open. They have,
Yes.
and actually Oregon is apparently
Yes.
the most. Yeah, they actually have retreats
Mm-hmm.
that you can go there, but not nearly as widely available as necessary. I was
Right.
talking to her about the DMM, default mode network, in the brain that these medications shut down, so that you can experience what's in it for someone who's gone through that kind of trauma. That which again I can't imagine. It's so complex, to try to face it on your own and with conventional therapies and so forth. Personally, I've taken the journey through meditation,
Mm-hmm.
lots of meditation. It
Yeah.
takes a long time to get there. And those people that are suffering with that, with PTSD, depression, anxiety. I mean, definitely had anxiety. They don't have that time or luxury.
Right.
Yeah. So you went, so this isn't, luckily, well, Texas is right by Mexico. So this treatment's available to people in Mexico then.
Correct. There are a handful of, highly recognized organizations that have been around for maybe 10 years now. And again, it's not commonplace. I consider it, kind of a barrier for veterans who maybe cannot travel outside of the country, because if you can't, then that's a barrier to care if
Right.
you can't travel. And also sometimes it's cost prohibitive because it can be expensive. Those treatments can be expensive, and so we're hopeful that again that the research and the data that continues to come in to support these medicines and these treatments, and that we get to a point where our veterans are not having to fork out thousands of dollars and go into other countries to seek the treatment that they just so desperately need.
Yeah, yeah, and the research is happening. I mean,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because cannabinoids um, were illegal in, what was it, the 70s, right? We've taken this huge step back. They're still considered a class one drug, which from another a guest I had talks about considered no medical benefit at all. But
Mhm.
we understand there's a whole cannabinoid system that helps with this regulation, and so that is happening. But I can certainly appreciate not soon enough, right?
Right,
Not soon
right.
enough. I mean, veterans and others, but we're talking specifically veterans here, have been suffering, for many years. There's been,
Yeah.
in our country. So, did you go with your husband to the retreat or
I
the
did. I
treatment?
didn't, and they do offer. There are a lot of organizations that offer and encourage couples counseling, because if you can imagine, or I'll just put it this way: in our household, with me being the primary caregiver for my husband for all of those years, there's a
Mhm.
certain level of secondary trauma that I
Yeah,
experienced,
yeah.
and my family experienced all of those years while he was working on his mental health.
Mhm.
And when he took this individual journey, which I was fully supportive of because we were desperate. I mean, let's be honest, we were desperate for help.
Wow.
I fully encouraged him to go and find the healing that he needed. What I didn't realize at the time, though, was how much healing I needed.
Mhm.
And, we consider that secondary trauma for caregivers, because for all of that time, um, and leading up to and then beyond his treatment, he came back a different person, a person that I hardly recognized. And I was the same person that he left. I had my own unmet needs and my own traumas and resentment, and it didn't make for a very welcoming environment, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's this. I really, a lot of the work that he and I do now is really about raising awareness so that the entire family unit heals together. And so when you asked about, did I go with him? I didn't, but I probably could have benefited from that kind of treatment. Still, I mean, I still have not taken my own journey. And so that's something that at some
Right.
point I think I'd really like to do. Yeah.
You and your husband are certainly, and we'll talk about the foundation here just in a little bit. I'm curious, as the listeners might also be, and if you're willing to share, what branch was he in? How long was he in? And
So
how
he
long was the treatment?
Yeah, so he actually served before we met. He served in the Air Force as an aircraft mechanic, and he served 6 years. And like I said before we met, so I had no idea that when we started our life together, how much the military would actually influence our entire life. And the research also shows that some of these injuries, they don't present themselves immediately. There's like a delay before, symptoms or issues really start to show. And that was absolutely true for us because I had no idea that any of this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And you have children as well?
We do. We have a blended family, so each of us met with one child of our own, and then we had two more together, so four total. Which also, I think complicated things because they also had to see and experience some of these things for themselves firsthand. Um, it's been a tough journey. That our journey has not been an easy one, but I think it makes for a good story at the end,
Yeah.
and certainly
Yeah.
in our case, coming out
Yeah.
on the other end of it. Yeah,
Nothing worthwhile is seldom easy, I suppose.
absolutely.
So, for those people out there that might be in a similar situation and don't know it, can you give us some clues on what started to come up, or how did this unresolved trauma start to manifest in your lives?
Yeah, I think this may ring true, maybe some for some of your audience, but my husband had chronic pain. We knew there were some issues that he was experiencing, physical issues that he would seek treatment for. The VA was the primary form of healthcare that he used, and they would administer so much medicine, and he would refuse to take that medicine because of how it made him feel. In fact, some of the prescriptions actually made him feel more suicidal. So he refused to take them, and the pain was so heavy and so hard in our lives. Even when we had young children, sometimes
The
I would
physical
find
pain.
the physical pain that he was enduring. And
Mm-hmm.
it took quite a long time for him to get that resolved. We actually had to go through private health care for him to get the treatment that he needed, which was significant. I mean, he needed a spinal fusion and a hip replacement by the time he was 40 years old.
Wow.
Um, so, when we talk about the physical pain, he needed some significant interventions. So after the pain was gone, though, and after he was, on the mend from his surgeries, he was still really upset. He was, the moods that we had attributed to
The pain.
pain for all that time, they continued, and all of us were at a loss for why, because he reported being pain free now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think life just there was in public health, I talk a lot about adverse childhood experiences and traumas that a lot of these service members enter the military with. And that was the case for my husband. He had a lot of unresolved traumas from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And, the military further compounded those traumas until they just surfaced and they were unresolved for so long. The pain was just, the chronic pain was just a mask
Yeah.
that was really going on.
Yeah, we talk about. I've had somebody on recently about the mind-body connection, and without the body, our thoughts and issues wouldn't be nearly as strong. But I can completely see that when he was in a lot of pain, you weren't able to see through that. So, just curious on the time frame. So, you got married, and then how long after the marriage and the kids did this start to manifest?
I would say about 5 or 6 years after. The conflict, it was constant. The mood swings became more extreme. And then again, with the physical pain, he was falling a lot. He
Mhm.
was, his legs and his back, he was just so much pain. The medicine, when he took it, when he absolutely couldn't stand it, it didn't help with the moods. And so our house was we were always on edge. We were always just watching and waiting. It became a pretty, I would say, kind of dangerous situation, because it was so unpredictable. And, it could have gone in a really bad direction.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Well, thank you, Maria, for sharing all of this and for obviously his willingness for you to share it. And he obviously shares it because you guys have really turned this around and really, I really honor what you're doing. First of all, honoring those that have committed suicide after service, but also trying to grow that awareness. How long was the treatment? How long was he
He
gone?
was gone for 4 days. He
Oh,
was
four
gone.
days.
Yep, he was gone for 4 days. And there are different medicines for different ailments. And
Mhm.
so the one that he was on, or the two that he took, was psilocybin, which are mushrooms.
Yep. Yep.
And then he also took one called 5-MeO-DMT, which
Yep.
is like, I think, like a frog toxin, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And they call that ego death.
You go down.
And those two together, I'll say it again, but transformative. The
Yeah.
person who came back was not the person who left. The
Yeah.
person who came back was full of love for himself and for his family. And, it was
Wow.
truly humbling, and it was amazing to see. And, it's not just when you feel good about yourself in your mind. I think it transforms into how you feel about yourself in your body. And so the
Oh, yeah.
physical transformation, I mean, this man, he lost like 80 pounds. He wanted to live after that. And it's profound.
It,
So
it,
yeah.
and the timing of this podcast is great because I do know a little bit of the psilocybin, and that's what Moira Holtzman was talking about. And I understand that during the treatment that DMN, that default mode
Mhm.
network, shuts completely down, and then there's a reintegration period for a couple of weeks. So did he experience that did they tell him like don't go watching any scary movies or stay calm? Was that the advice he got?
Yeah, there was some integration before, so he could prep. There was like 3 weeks of prep, and
Okay.
then of course coming back in with these new neural pathways and these new opportunities to make, you know, proper decisions, or better decisions, instead
Healing,
of
yeah.
being so reactive.
Creating new patterns, yeah.
Creating new patterns, learning new things, new ways to respond. And so, yeah, absolutely. And it, again, it like rewired him, but in a
Mhm.
literal sense, because even things that he enjoyed doing were no longer enjoyable. Things that he enjoyed eating or drinking, especially like if it was alcohol, absolutely no desire or want. He's even his, the kind of music that he would listen to, it completely changed, just everything about it. And
Wow.
one way that I understood this best, when I was very nervous.
Yes. Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Well, you said your own journey. Yeah.
yeah, I was very nervous for how this he would receive this and how he would come back. I had no idea,
Right.
and I was ill prepared for what this medicine might mean for him. I mean, I loved him as he was, and who was this person going to return as? And one way that the nurse explained it to me was kind of like if you're in a cabin in the woods and you
Mhm.
always have these same paths that you walk to get water, or to get wood or whatever. They're worn in the dirt. You're
Mhm.
familiar with those paths, but after the medicine, it's like a fresh snow. And so those paths are covered. And when you come out of the cabin now, you have to choose, and you
Mhm.
choose new paths. And so
Mhm.
the integration is so essential.
Yeah.
It's absolutely essential, which
Mhm.
is another reason why I am so passionate about bringing in the family unit, because again, I couldn't support him as well as I should have been able to, because I didn't know how, and I wasn't prepared.
Wow. Well, that metaphor, that visual is just beautiful, and it's absolutely perfect because the neuroscience is now, we're all becoming much more aware of these cow paths, I've called, that we've grooved into our heads, and
Mm-hmm.
creating new ones is hard at first because the brain resists.
Yeah.
And so these psychedelics shut that part down, and then it takes that couple of weeks for it to fully integrate, fully get back up to speed. So within that time, you have this beautiful window. So,
Yeah.
and now you guys have a foundation to grow this awareness. Tell us the name and.
Yeah. So, in his newfound health and finding his purpose, you may know, but like most service members and veterans, they have lives of service, and that is truly the case for my husband. He wanted to be service oriented before, but even more now. And so he established a foundation. It's called Operation Solace, SOLACE. And what he does is he raises money so that he can send veterans on these life saving retreats. And he has some partnerships with some organizations here in the States and even some organizations outside of the country who administer these medicines for the veterans at no cost. And he didn't want the cost to be the barrier for treatment, especially for someone who's desperately needing treatment, because what it does is it provides hope.
Yeah.
And for that moment after he found the organization that saved him, I could see hope in his eyes, because this was not something that we had ever tried before, and we had tried everything.
No, obviously, nobody wants to feel the way he was feeling. Nobody wants to in their lives. It's just they can't find their way out. And that's amazing. I am so grateful to have seen. I knew when I walked into the altar that there was something real happening there. And you guys actually, like, I don't know if one's the right word, but you were recognized.
Yeah. Yeah. That's never why we build it. That's never the intention, but there is a contest at the end, and some independent judges voted that his altar won best overall. I mean, Holly, you were there, so you know how beautiful and impactful that altar was, and it is for us too. It is truly a labor of love. It takes a lot of energy, and it's super emotional. But at the end of it, it was absolutely worth it, and it always is every year.
Oh, wow. I mean, considering he just went 3 years ago, I mean, he really quickly moved, and you've been at this festival 3 years now. I mean, that was a quick turnaround. And if we have some photos, I can try to interject some photos into this so you can send me some photos and so people can see the altar. But yeah, thank you. And we all hope, of course, in time, that these type of treatments, this understanding of psychedelics, their benefits, the endocannabinoid system, the DMN, is all going to be more available. But for now, thank you for your work. And your husband's name?
His name is Gabe.
Gabe, thank you, and Gabe, for your work. If somebody's out there listening to this and know they're scared or they're wanting more, how do they reach you? Or actually, if somebody's out there listening to this, I usually ask my guests, what is one thing they can do, right now to find that hope?
Yeah, I would direct them to his website, which is operationsolace.org.
Okay.
We have resources there. You can connect with him as we fundraise and as we're able. The goal this year is to send 24 more veterans to seek that, to receive that treatment. And so, let's connect with him and or me, or however you want. And we're doing it at the grassroots level, but it's making a change already. And he's already sent some veterans last year, and so
every single live that you can send. I mean, you talked about losing 22 a day and sending 24 over the year, but we have to start somewhere. So.
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, when you talked about the altar, I remember being there, just gave me chills. So thank you, Maria, for coming on today. And we will definitely have information in the show notes for people that want to donate or that need help and want to find that hope because Gabe is a living example of lived experience. that there is hope. So
Absolutely.
yes, so thank you so much for your time, and best of luck. And my heart is open to everyone out there that can use this help. Thank you,
Thank you
Maria.
so much, Holly. I appreciate the opportunity to share our story.
All right, and let's go back live. Wow. Wow. Part of what I enjoy about this live version is just to be able to sit back and watch and listen to the story. So thank you for doing that. We didn't really talk about your work. You're a healthcare professional in your own right. And tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you do besides this wonderful nonprofit that you work on with Gabe.
Yeah, so I am a public health professional by trade. What I work on is I really work to serve the military population. And if I had a specific group that I'm most passionate about serving, it would be the caregiver group. Um,
Yeah.
you know, until I recognized myself as a caregiver, I always just thought that the struggles that we were going through were like marital strife, but it was more than that. And putting a name to that and identifying as a caregiver was really just profound for me. And it made me realize that we need to raise, some more awareness. More people need to identify with this title if they do indeed care for their service member or veteran. And so these days, I spend my time supporting military and veteran serving organizations to facilitate workshops and develop curriculum that we can insert into some of these psychedelic journeys and ceremonies so that the caregiver or the support system is more informed. I love it. And so I saw an opportunity and
Yeah. Definitely. When you mentioned that in the studio, it just really, of course, right? And that you were ill prepared when he came back because there wasn't any prep for the caregivers who had been living under, you called it that secondary trauma. So both causes, right? Definitely worthwhile. And if there's people out there that are listening to this and want to donate, it's at Operation Solace.
Solace.
.org or
Correct. .org.
.org. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hoping that you're getting more donations and as the research goes on, that this will be, who knows, in 5 or 10, 20 years, this might be available more readily in the United States as it should be.
Correct.
But for now, thank you for doing the work. I have found, when you said when Gabe came back, he was, full of self-love and compassion and kindness. And you talked about the ego death. And through my own journey of meditation, I have found that when you set that thinking aside, a lot of times veterans, even a lot of people struggling can't get out of that thought, can't get out of those thought patterns and can only see life through that lens. But when you can get out of that, there can be this rush of compassion and kindness kind of in your gut that has been hiding there, until it was safe to come out.
I like how you said that about the safety. I really think that's a huge part of it, and being vulnerable for the first time.
Yeah. I imagine when he came back, like, he had this time to create these new pathways, but it's like this whole world opened up, and it could be it's definitely about being vulnerable, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This was so fun, Holly. Thank you.
Well, like I said, I really enjoyed meeting you, and I really enjoyed seeing your work. And I'm excited to see and hope that, has there been anything new since are you guys going to do the festival again next year? What's up? What's new with you guys?
Yeah, that's the plan, is to continue. Planning usually starts in early summer, so we get a design together, and then of course the event is late October. But Gabe has been just making connections left and right with all of these organizations to partner with them. His fundraising campaign in February was really successful, so I'm so proud of him for that. And so everything has just come full circle. We couldn't be more grateful.
That in gratitude. I was just listening to it. They're finding old clips of Louise Hay, who I don't know if you know who she is, but back in the day, she was "You Can Heal Your Life," and she talked about gratitude and how that can bring so much to people in this world. And I certainly will do what I can to connect you up with people that I know, and for both causes. Really, I don't want to kind of underscore. I do want to underscore the caregivers out there as well. So again, if you're out there and you need help, please reach out to Gabe and Maria. And if you can, please donate, please connect them. This is these are the people that served our country. And sorry. So a cause well worth.
You feel it. I feel it all the time.
I bet you do.
More than a worthy cause, right? I mean,
it's more than a worthy cause. We're here. We have what we have today because a lot of the people out there who are suffering. So
yes, you're right.
So thank you for joining me here live and for your work. And if I do a season 3 next year, perhaps I'll have you back on. I'd just love to hear how it's going and keep in touch.
Fantastic. I look forward to it.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us on another episode of Pay Attention. We'll be back in 2 weeks, where I reached out to someone who is super fundamental on my journey roughly 10 years ago, a teacher of mine who agreed to be on the podcast. So I hope you'll join us then. And for now, open your hearts, stay present, and we'll see you next time on Pay Attention.
Thanks for watching Pay Attention with Holly McNEILL. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week on Wednesday at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern.